Hey everybody, welcome back. Interesting, I think could be a fun video this time around. I installed a rear sway bar into the Jaguar XJS. My model year did not come with a rear sway bar, so we had to buy all the additional hardware for mounting as well as the sway bar and a little bit of modifications to the rear subframe and everything to get that all mounted and installed and everything. So we'll go through that here in a minute. Also, finally got the rear end rebuilt, and we're going to install everything and show you where we're at with that. Okay, so here is the rear back together. Nothing fancy. This wasn't as nearly rusty and gross and pitted as the front suspension was, so I didn't go as hard cleaning it. Just kind of got rid of the rust and the oil and the grit, and gave the cage a squirt of flat black and put it back together. I think we'll be fine. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of rust. There's some rust, but it's superficial. It's just surface rust, and I just wanted to get this project moving, so I didn't go as hard as I did on the front suspension. I think it looks perfectly fine. Here's the new springs installed. So these are the updated struts and springs. You'll notice the springs are a little bit wider and there's more coils, so there might be a little bit stiffer in the back, but that's fine. We're going to press on. Okay, and so one modification you need to do for this particular project, because we are adding a sway bar, is the subframe connectors do not have a way to mount the sway bar links on. So you've either got to track some down that have the attachment already on this, because some of these do come with a sway bar link attachment. Mine did not. I couldn't find one that had the sway bar link for anything less than a couple $100. So for $5 in some steel, I made a bracket and welded it on right there, and it's in roughly the same position that you would find the factory one. I did not have any kind of measurements, so I just went off as best I could with pictures, and the sway bar link just drops right in. It's a little bit tight, snug, but that's what you want. You don't want it to be sloppy. So there you go, and then that would just attach to the sway bar link on the top, the actual sway bar. Okay, all right, so here is the ADDCO sway bar that we're going to be installing onto the vehicle. The additional hardware that you need besides the sway bar for installation on this particular vehicle is, number one, you're going to need the bracket installed onto the subframe, whether you either buy a subframe connector that has the attachment already there, or you weld it on yourself like we did in this project. And you're also going to need this mounting bracket, which oddly enough, the hardware to mount the sway bar itself is still on the body of the vehicle. It just doesn't come with a sway bar. So the other thing you're going to need is the sway bar connector, which is from Moss Motors, and then additional hardware to install the sway bar connector, and then additional hardware to install the bracket on the body. That did not come with the ADDCO kit. The ADDCO kit came with just the sway bar and the sway bar mount. So the other thing with this particular sway bar is it did not come with holes large enough to fit the end link, so this had to get drilled out so that this would fit on. Okay, so here's the sway bar installed in the car. Make sure you install it with the loop upward so it clears your drivetrain. And you can see here the location of the factory sway bar would go right here. So there we go. It now has a rear sway bar. Hopefully help a little bit with the handling, but we'll see. Here's the rear sway bar installed in the vehicle now. Notice the adapter for the end link that is welded onto the radius arm. They worked out pretty good. So they're simple to do. You just got to make sure they're straight up and down and that there's enough room underneath it. And it seems a little close to this hub carrier. I think it'll be fine. As the suspension goes up, this actually canters away a little bit, so I don't fear there's going to be any reason why that will ever hit. So underneath, you'll see there's plenty of clearance for your emergency brake cable. That's right here. It still needs to be adjusted. You're not hitting the brake line is right there, so there's clearance for that. I can fit my full stinger finger in there. And then on this side, the only thing I had to do on this side is the fuel line runs right here, and so I used a zip tie and pulled it as far as I could out of the way. It's not hitting or anything, but just be aware that that could be an issue in your vehicle. Well, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Still a lot of work to do, but not a whole lot, right? So the suspensions are done, the brakes are done, all around the brakes, the suspensions are done, the engine's rebuilt, the transmission is in the process of being rebuilt. I just got parts 2-3 weeks ago, and that'll be starting to get put back together here shortly. It's already apart and cleaned. So once that's done, we will put the transmission and the engine back together, put the transmission and the engine back into the car, wire it up, and as long as there's no delays with parts or some funding issues, we should be back and driving again by the end of this year. Have a good day, everybody.